What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another video, another tip video. More importantly, you guys tear those up, you guys love them. One question I would like to ask is, what tip videos would you like to see next? But today what we're going to be doing is I'm going down to a small pond, and I'm pretty much going to show you guys how I break down an area, whether it's a new area or it's an area I've been to. Pretty much how to break down small ponds and how to fish small ponds and how I go about it. So let's go ahead and go down to the pond, baby. Just got down to this pond right here, and as you can tell, it's just a small little area. Most of you guys are probably going to be fishing some smaller ponds. This pond right here is very small. But when I come to a new location or when I come down to a pond, there's a few things I really look at even before I make a cast. Obviously, when I'm looking at the pond right here, just a smaller area, very isolated place, there's not really much going on. And as you guys can tell, you know, I see a few things that really catch my eye. One, I see a tree over there in the water. As you guys can tell over there, that's one of the main focuses. I see a tree. Another thing is I see these trees that are hanging over the water back in that corner. So that's going to tell me one thing. On a sunny day, those trees are going to cast a shadow out in that water, and it's going to be an area where the sun's not beaming down. So there's going to be a lot of shade over there in that corner. Then you got a big old tree laying down in the water that those bass are going to suck up against. I don't care if it's cloudy, sunny. On a sunny day, more importantly, they're going to tuck up under that tree. But most of the time, especially largemouth bass, they love trees, they love wood. As I look around the pond, I really don't see much. You know, I don't see much more. As I start to cast, I'll realize that, oh, there's some grass right here. Oh, there might be some like rocks underneath the surface. But there is one thing I see right here. As you guys can tell, there's two little stumps or two little pieces of wood that are sticking out of the water, and they're just kind of out there by themselves. They're very isolated, and bass love that stuff. If you guys ever see anything isolated in the middle, whether it's like a little twig sticking up out of the water, maybe there's like a tree stump or a tree that's sticking out of the water, you need to throw at that. Like that right there, you know, that's just a little piece of wood. I'm going to be starting off with a spinner bait. What I tend to do when I go to these little areas is I start off with a moving bait first and see how active those fish are. If the fish aren't like wanting to really cooperate with me, they're not really trying to bite, it's, you know, I might switch over to, you know, a slow working bait. You know, I'm gonna switch over to, you know, my soft plastics, my crawls, my worms, that whole deal, and that's what I'm gonna do. But when I first go to a location, I usually start off with a moving bait first to see if I can catch those active fish, and then throughout the day I'll slow down and throw me a worm. And it all depends on the conditions. Like if it was bluebird skies out here, super hot, I wouldn't even start off with this. I'd probably just go ahead and move over to my crawl or my worm. If you guys want to check out my other tip video where I talked about my crawl, where you can pretty much work it all different ways, that's another good option, especially if it's super sunny outside but you want something to throw around moving anyways. But as you guys can tell, that isolated cover right there, I got this old spinner bait, some Colorado blades, and then I actually painted some of the blades red. This is the Fish Head spinner baits Primal series with a little trailer hook on it. You got this very dirty water, you got a little bit of cloud cover in the sky, not too much sun, no wind at all, but I want to slow roll this through. Let's make a cast right out there. I promise you guys, like 90% of the time there's going to be a fish on structure like this, or these little trees. There's going to be a, you know, a fish on that stuff. Maybe he's not wanting something moving today, because I promise you, especially in a small pond like this, there's not going to be too much. You know, maybe some ponds that people go to, there's going to be a lot of laydowns in the water. Maybe there's a lot of rock, you know, who knows, whatever it is. But especially on a place like this where there's really not much, like I said, there's a tree over there, and then there's like these little trees that are hanging over, and I know there's going to be a little bit of shade back in this corner. But you know, the one thing is there's not too much stuff for these fish to hide on. There's not many rocks. I haven't seen any rocks at all. You know, there's not too many trees. So when I see something like that, I'm 100% casting at it. But I'm just gonna start going down this bank right here, fan casting, see if they're gonna try to eat this moving bait. So I really didn't, I've been throwing this around for quite a second. I didn't have any bites on it. I'd really like there to be some wind out here, especially when throwing a spinner bait. It's just something I had on my rod, and I was like, I'm gonna take it down here and throw this as my, you know, moving bait and see if I can catch any active ones. But I'm actually gonna cut this off, tie on a Texas rig, put a regular Zoom speed crawl in there, and we're gonna go around and catch some fish. We're gonna work it on the top, we're gonna walk it on the middle and on the bottom, and see if we can catch some of these fish out here. Instead of a Zoom speed crawl, I actually got a little Rage Crawl on. Got a little lead bullet weight, little EWG 3-aught hook. I'm gonna go down this bank, cover some water with this thing. I'm actually gonna reel it at the top of the water to start off with, especially in this little, actually had something hit it right there. Right away, right off the bat. It's gonna cover a lot of water. I don't know if you guys watch some of my videos, I'm a big fan of throwing a rage crawl on top of the water and right below the surface and actually reeling it rather than just using it as a little flipping bait. I'm a big fan of using it as a, you know, moving bait and a slow moving bait at the same time. Oh yeah. Oh my gosh, it's a huge one. I saw him come right off. Looking right up on the bank. There we go, baby. He ain't a monster, but he's a good quality fish. Oh man, what a beautiful one right there. Let me tell you guys something right now. Look at that. That's a beautiful fish. He's about, let's say 2 1/4, maybe pushing about 2 1/2. Really thick. He's a thick fish. He's not. That is a beautiful fish right there, guys. Let's get a quick release on him. Now I'll show you guys how I caught that. There we go, guys. Beautiful little bass right here. Solid, thick, and healthy one. Let's get him back in the water. There he goes. So everyone, at the beginning of the episode, I threw my spinnerbait past that little isolated cover, and how I was talking about that when pretty much you see, you know, any sticks or anything literally sticking up by itself out there in the middle or whatever it is, majority of the time you're gonna catch, you know, a big fish on that stuff. So what I did is I casted this crawl past that really at the top of the water a couple of times. He didn't even, you know, it didn't even phase him. Then when I cast it right next to that left-hand side of it, landed right next to that little stump, I pretty much saw a wake in the water to the left of my bait, and from there I was about to say, you know, he's about to eat it. I felt him tick it one time and he had it. That just shows, you know, when you pinpoint that type of stuff when you're coming to these ponds, it's pretty much like a given. Like, you know where the fish is going to be, especially when you throw the right bait in there. But let's continue to work down this side, back in this corner, and back to where this tree's at. I cannot believe that. Guys, I cannot believe that. That's unbelievable. I have no idea. I skipped up under that tree back there and he ticked it right away and it just snapped right off and I tried to hook set him. All right, I'm about to get my revenge on this fish right here. That was the awkwardest hook set I've done in a minute. I'm like under some trees. It's really hard to hook set back here. But wow, second fish of the day. Exactly where I called him out. I said there was going to be one on that tree right when I got out here. Just like I did on that little isolated stump over there. In both the locations, there was some fish on. As you guys can tell, a little pretty dark bass right there. Right off that tree. But I promise you, he's not the only one. So when you're fishing places like this, don't be afraid to go throw multiple casts. Because like a big tree like that, especially in a small pond, a small location like this, isn't just going to have one fish on it. It's going to have multiple. I guarantee you that 100%. Whether you can get them to bite or not, but after you catch one, I would continue to cast there and see if you can pick another one off, because that took me about 7 more casts after I broke off to even get another bite off that tree. But then I did right when I threw in there. That's how I caught that bad boy. Oh, God. Two casts right after that one in the same exact spot, caught another fish. Shows you right there. I'm just proving everything that I'm saying back and forth. Is there's gonna be more fish on that tree. That was 2 casts literally in the same spot, and I caught another little beautiful bass right there. Nothing super big, but super, these fish are heavy. It's really weird out here. These fish got a lot of weight behind them, but in the same spot, threw it in there, he just ticked it. Beautiful little bass. So there's actually another reason why there's a lot of fish stacked right here, rather than me just saying, you know, this tree is the reason why. But there's actually some water flowing in the pond right back here in this corner, and that's where the water's coming in at. Fish love that little current, you know, that little water pushing through. They're just gonna stack up all around that, especially where the mouth is here. And I'm only fishing in about 6 inches of water. With largemouth, you're not really gonna have to worry about that much. You know, these largemouth, they get up in the nastiest stuff. And you guys would be surprised where I've caught some largemouth. It just blows my mind every time I catch a largemouth in some crazy areas, but I mean, that's just, it's their natural thing. I mean, they're everywhere. They hang out in all this nasty, dirty stuff where you really don't think a fish would be. attention to these corners in these ponds. Like right here, it has just a little bit of rock out here in this corner, and then it's got a little tree that's sunk in right out here. Oh, I watched him eat it right there. I'm just at a weird angle under this tree. Right in the corner where I said he was going to be. He's a little baby guy, I can tell you that. I could tell how he was hitting it. Never got the bait all the way. Let's throw it back in there. When you get a bite, make sure you throw it back in there. It was actually a different one. I was just swimming that crawl that time instead of working on the bottom. I just swam that thing right by. This fish just came out of nowhere and just annihilated that thing. Pretty little fat guy, I can tell you that. Nothing big, but look at that little belly on that thing. Let's throw back in that corner and see if we can catch another. Another thing is, you guys see that tree right there, how it kind of hangs over? And with the sun glaring down this water, you can tell that it's leaving a little shade right under that tree. Sorry about the quality, guys. My camera actually died and I'm having to switch over to an iPhone now. But as I was saying, there's that tree that hangs over, a little bit of shade underneath the tree. There should be a fish under there. Not always, but there should be a fish. That's one of those things that you need to cast at. Now this is the perfect corner. This is actually where that tree is, the same tree. A lot of shade right here. Then you got that water flowing to the left-hand side where that water's coming in. Oh my. That was insane. These fish were, these little baby guys were schooling out there in the middle. It's another way to catch them, man. I saw some fish popping up in the middle of the water out there, and I threw that thing in there before I could even... Just like that. And I skipped this thing up all the way in between that tree to where it came onto the other side, because I was fishing on all this edge, and I just drug him out from the other side to come onto this tree and just eat my bait right there. A little thick, pretty guy right there.